Kavi, it's great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show. And before we get into your latest release, Fables, I want to know first and foremost with this pandemic, 4 years ago, it already did its damage. And now that we look back, how did you make it through that time period? And how did it either affect this album or the way that you do things now?
Thank you. That's a great question. I was just out of grad school post-pandemic, and I was trying to figure out what it meant to have a career in that little time period because live music had gone away, and it was either up to us to create music for the people to be online, because I still thought it was necessary for us to be creating music in that period of time. I think music kind of rushed back after the pandemic here in the Twin Cities. So I was, sort of energized by how much people missed it and began to tell us and all other jazz musicians in the town how much it meant to their lives. And so I was very energized to hear how much we support the community around us. And so I got to work trying to think of what should I do next, because I've been a sideman for a long time. And so after the pandemic, I really started to imagine that I could have an act where I write original music and present myself as the band leader, so to speak. And that's been just kind of an incredible journey of self-discovery and really stepping into what I imagined it to be. So yes.
So talk to me a little bit about this album. What were kind of the artistic forces? What was the vision? How do you feel
Mhm.
about it?
Well, I'm so incredibly thrilled to play with this band because these are four of my greatest mentors and teachers that I've been playing with since I arrived in the Twin Cities. Um, that was sort of the biggest inspiration, is getting to hire them, because this album is sort of about discovering my roots in music in general. I've ever since I was a child, I've been listening to Indian classical music and Arabic music and some other, just a cavalcade of many other things. So in my journey in my career, I've been heavily focusing on the jazz improvisation, and I wanted to find a way to bring all the influences from my childhood into it. And so very slowly, I was able to sort of write in that fashion, but also develop little things that feel kind of true to me. And so it was a journey of just finding out, oh, I can actually blend this and feel empowered by it, rather than sort of questioning the zone in which I live in musically, so to speak. So I feel very happy. I feel like we accomplished a lot of things. I was very grateful to my band. We were able to figure things out, and sometimes being a musician, describing a vision can be very abstract, but they understand me really well, and it just came out fantastic. Yeah.
So you talked about being a sideman for a while. You're really
Mhm.
stepping out as this is under your name. This is your baby. How does it feel to have this big shout out into the jazz world?
Oh, it's incredible. I always enjoy being a sideman because I think it's a fantastic learning experience. Just for, I never really knew what I wanted to do as a band leader. It's to step out into my own as a writer. So at a certain point in my life, I said, I'm gonna put off that conquest and just focus on giving to other folks. And so when I worked here in the Twin Cities, I got to meet and play with a lot of incredible band leaders who have just incredibly unique visions. And so, I tried to learn everything I could from what they were doing, and but also contribute to their artistry. And so now I feel like I was finally not afraid to tell my own story, because I feel like I gathered all the requisite tools. The greatest thing I got out of it was just how to be myself when I either, play the music or write the music, but also just in general that seeped into my life, being sort of like a multicultural person in today's world is incredibly difficult. So this was a result of my journey. It just kind of gathering all the incredible music that I needed to, and then making something that I really wanted to out of it. Yeah.
So, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
I'm hoping that they're able to see themselves in the music. These are 8 of my real life stories, to say. Some of these stories are, songs about self-discovery, but also how it felt to kind of pursue a career in music. I left behind a career in the sciences, only a tiny career in the sciences, to come to music. And I write about being a teacher in the modern day and age, and I write about putting hope in people's hands, and how what we are built on is, of course, passed on to us by generations of people, and their hopes and dreams for us, and just being able to persevere through life in the arts or whatever it is that you're trying to do. So for me, what's most important is, even though I'm the storyteller and these are my stories, that they're able to see their lives and relate to it and empathize it. I feel like if the music is that transparent, I would have done a great job at that. So that's the ultimate hope. Yeah.
So, take me back to the beginnings of your life and how music became a part of it, and more specifically, jazz became a career.
Absolutely. Well, my father's a pianist and a composer, and we lived in this country called Oman, which is in the Middle East. And ever since I was little, I'd seen him teach people and perform. But he was an engineer at the time too. So I was growing up around a family who's always consuming music, and they gave me different kinds of music. They were not, restricting me to anything. So I found everything under the sun. I found like ABBA and the Carpenters when I was like 5 or 6, and at the same time listening and performing like Carnatic music and also Hindustani music, which is the North Indian tradition. We're South Indian, and at the same time, learning like the music of Oman and being exposed to kind of other musical things that were being listened to by my peers. There's a lot of like 2000s music, like rock and pop. So I didn't really discover jazz. I was playing a lot of like European classical music too. Um, but what happened when I was about 18 or 19 was I discovered jazz through YouTube. And funnily enough, it was Jamie Foxx's stand-up video where he was playing these super dense, beautiful chords, and I'd never heard them before. And he's making jokes, of course, but I was more obsessed with what chords he was playing. So that led to like a rabbit hole of finding bands like Snarky Puppy and Chick Corea and Robert Glasper. And so I decided to drop out of engineering school and go to a music school in India where they had several jazz professors, and they came from all around the world. Most of them used to live in New York City, but there were many Brazilian teachers, there were Portuguese teachers, and they were all super well versed in this art form. So eventually I made the jump. I came to St. Paul in 2016 to sort of be more immersed in the jazz world, and that was the best thing I could have done. So I came here and I sort of paid my dues and played with the great artists here, and that's how I sort of found myself here in the jazz world. Yeah.
So, what was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away?
Oh, definitely had to be Snarky Puppy. They were in India. It was a big jazz festival, and they were sort of coming off of the fame of We Like It Here, which is that really great album. And I was probably like 19 or something like that. I wasn't old enough to get in there at that time, but I had a group of musicians who vouched for me and got me like this special wristband, and I got to hang out with all of them too. So we were in the back row and we were all watching Snarky Puppy, and it was just fantastic.
That's
Yeah.
cool. So I'm curious, coming to America and getting into this art form, what did you learn from the elders, legends, luminaries? What did you learn from those types of people in the world of jazz that lent so well to you picking this up and having a career as you do now?
Yeah, well, one of the greatest things I learned is like the freedom and the uniqueness that jazz embodies, you know. Um, there's two quotes from Wayne Shorter that I remember. Wayne would say, jazz is this a bee that goes to every flower in the music and say, don't forget to be creative, don't forget to be creative. But the other thing he said was, jazz means I dare you, you know, and it's about challenging uh, what we know is the music and take it to new frontiers, you know. And so I was super inspired by all of the elders' music that I played, who their voice was so clear, you know, they were so unique because of their lived experience, because of the way they were kind of molding the music to shape what they heard, you know. And so I learned that, and that was incredibly powerful. But I also learned that it's very democratic, you know. As a writer and a leader, you have to open up the gates and let people, you know, take part in your experience, and it's a shared experience, and everything that you bring to the music is beautiful, and they really embrace that, you know. They I feel like my one of my mentors, Babatunde Lee, his music is just so brilliant and so centered in Afro Latin rhythms, and he would always encourage us to bring our own ideas to it. And so it was this kind of welcoming experience too. So I learned that, you know, it's so helpful to be that way in the music. It comes across super conversative to the listener, and that's what we want in jazz, you know. Those are two things that come to mind. Yeah.
For sure. So on this journey of being a musician, what do you like the best about it? What gets you up every day? What motivates you the most?
Oh, that's a good question, because I feel like I don't do a whole lot of work that's not music in my life. Everything that I do is very entrenched in music. I teach and I play and I, you know, write and all this good stuff. So I'm most excited every day to just partake in it. You know, I feel very grateful that I'm, you know, put here to create music. So, like every day, I sort of try to play things that feel true to me, whether depending on the day. You know, there's so many thousands of standards that I just wake up one morning and sing it in one key, and then I have to sit down and finish it in that key. That just feels like a beautiful thing to me. And sometimes when I do that, I discover things every day. So there is sort of a beautiful discovery of self that happens for me through music. Everything that I feel like I've developed in life over the last, you know, couple, 3, 4 years have been reflections of what I've learned in the music, you know. And so it's always this guiding force, for not just for me, but everyone I see around me, you know, just my colleagues, but also the audience, you know. The listeners are so in tune with what the musicians are trying to say. So yeah, I just think it touches everyone, and especially me. You know, it really molds the way my life is.
So you mentioned, the audience, and you already mentioned, Snarky Puppy being the first show. That's pretty stellar to start off with. But
Yeah.
let's say you had the access to a time machine and you could go
Hmm.
back in time and see one show. Where are
Yeah.
you going? What would you love to see live?
I think I have to see the John Coltrane Quartet. You know, there's that show where they play one up, one down for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful experience that I'd love to experience. Just because, you know, I'm very influenced by McCoy Tyner and John Coltrane and Elvin and, you know, all the luminaries of that era, but that band in particular sticks out. Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you love jazz?
Um, Well, jazz is this incredible American art form that's so original and so incredibly individually creative, you know. And I think I fell in love with jazz at first with the beautiful harmony that I heard. You know, I was listening to Duke Ellington and a little bit of like early Herbie Hancock, and I just heard the most incredible, sophisticated chords. And then later on, I learned that, you know, on top of all this beautiful sophistication, there's also just this incredibly powerful message, you know. And so what I heard my idols emulate was just real life in their songs. Just everything you can ask for as a musician, you know, it is delivered. Like jazz is this incredible language that has the you know, capacity to communicate anything that you want to, just in the deep rhythmic history of it. And I, for one, really love the African roots of it, and really studying how that relates to the music, and how we got from, let's say, ragtime and stride to modern jazz and jazz fusion. And that journey was really excellent for me. I got to travel through time, learn how people craft this incredible art form. But for me, the most important thing for me is like it's taught me to be unique. It's taught me not to be afraid to be myself, you know. And so that's what I love most about it.
So let's get to the heart and soul of you. Everyone out there has a
Oh,
perception of you. Family,
yeah,
friends, fans, students, but you
yeah,
run the show. What's your
yeah.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, this was something I had to find out, and I asked the great Robert Glasper for some advice, and he told me just let everybody else tell you. But I also recognize that now I find myself in an image, particular image. I think I am meant to be a storyteller in the music, you know, and I really love telling stories that feel true to me, but also are universal experiences for all of us, you know.
Yeah.
In other aspects, I feel a great responsibility to be a teacher, especially an empathetic and you know, kind teacher sometimes, because I feel like life is very difficult for young students right now, and it's getting even more challenging to find that sense of individuality. So what I hope to impart to them is sort of my journey of finding, oh, I am a teacher who is teaching sort of Indian music and jazz music, and teaching people how to write in their own influences. And sometimes I feel a little bit like a cultural ambassador, but I would be very honored if somebody called me that. But yeah, I do feel like I'm walking this path of like storyteller, empath, and teacher, and student, very importantly, and you know, just a fellow musician who's out to create beauty in the realm of jazz music.
So Fables is the new album. If anybody wants to pick it up in the proper way, catch you live, any of the good business, where can they go?
Well, we're playing a lot here in Minneapolis, and we've got some really fun shows coming up. Fables is out on all streaming platforms, but you can pre-order the CD through Shifting Paradigm Records. They have a Bandcamp, and you'll get this beautiful physical CD that my sister and Zach Harris designed, and it has a lot of storytelling elements inside the design of that too. There's some YouTube stuff. There's some beautiful videos that my friend shot, and yeah, that'll be the best way to find us online, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your music.
Beautiful. Kavi, this has been wonderful, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for your story, for your time. I look forward to more albums and catching up with you down the line.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, and it certainly has.